What's the best true story you can share about your life? I once saved a girl's life on a whitewater rafting trip. After I got her back into the raft, I didn't get fully secured and wound up in the water. I nearly drowned, saw the bright white light, had my life flash before my eyes, and gave up trying to live and embrace that I was about to die. I had never been more at peace and calm with the world. Then I was suddenly vomiting water in a raft full of strangers. Assholes. Then you could have died a hero. Now who knows how you'll die? It may be some super stupid way like tripping on toilet paper. There was this amazing, beautiful, funny girl at my work. She agreed to go out with everyone for drinks. Eventually, it was just her and I going out after work. I was in love with this girl. She had all the qualities I was looking for in a woman and loved spending time with her. We'd stay up all night laughing, having a great time. I thought I missed my chance when she started seeing a buddy of mine, but that fizzled out. I finally worked up the courage to tell her I really liked her. She told me she felt the same way, and we began dating officially. We've been dating for about 4 months, and I love this girl, and she loves me. I haven't been this happy in a very long time. She'll be here in about 10 minutes. Gotta go, Reddit. I was 16, and this hurricane was coming in. Just got my license, so I took my girlfriend to an amusement park. No lines, I rode my first roller coaster. We went back to her house and laid in her yard to watch the storm finally hit land. I'd never seen something like this before, so it was crazy. I watched all these lights and colors and was like, I think I love you, and oh. She said it back. We kept dating for years. I appreciate all those memories. But laying in the grass and watching a massive storm come in, there's nothing else like that. A storm like that is everything: sight, smell, touch, hearing. That storm fucked our houses up, but watching it come in was surreal. I really wasn't even mad, but I was a teen. I'd likely be ruined if I were an adult. Took our homes, but goddamn what a sight. I'll remember that sight more than the home. I was probably in 11th grade, around 2006 to 7. I was in my room, studying, and at that exact moment, my cell phone beeps a message received. My watch beeped to signify that it was some hour. The doorbell rang. The landline phone started to ring. The lights in my room flickered. And by the exact moment, I mean exact same millisecond, I was so fucking thrilled by how awesome it was. But I was home alone, and not many people believed me. My friend went overseas like year after September 11th. I knew he was returning due to back injuries, but he didn't know I knew this. I drove to his house a few days after he hopped back and rang his bell. His girlfriend answered and said he couldn't come to the door, and I said, just tell him I'm here. That's cheesy. How we are best friends. He came to the door and hugged me so big we cried. And he said, man, I never thought I would see you again, and I believe that his stories he told me are wild. We went out and bought some meat and a beer, and he bought a new grill. We chilled out having beers and steaks. We had a blast. I used to regularly co-host a local sports radio show in New Orleans, WBOK, 12:30 a.m. White House, Sir Master Chef Ronnie Seaton would play the station over the speakers in the White House kitchen while his team cooked for First Family. And one day in particular, Michelle and Barack Obama were present. And she said to Sir Seaton that I have a very good sounding voice. Didn't know who I was, of course. But when he was about to retire, he came to a live remote I was running, recognized my voice, and told me the story. Kinda minor, but kinda not. How many people get paid a compliment from a first lady? Even indirectly. This was a while ago, but here we go. It was my job to water the plants in the house once a week. Now that we are past the context, here's the story. My mom recently got some new plants. This one with only leaves, one with like flowers and crap. You get me. Week after week, I'm watering their plants and not thinking much of it. A few months go by, and I'm doing my rounds when my mom catches me watering that all-leaf plant and asks me, what are you doing, abracadabra? Watering the plants. That one's fake. Oh. Last May, I went alone to Hanoi and was set to depart from Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon, 3 weeks later. I bought a motorcycle and drove the country. Along the way, I had the pleasure of meeting some truly amazing people, foreign and native. 3 of which, 2 Germans and a French Canadian, joined me on my trip. We were a tight little crew. We got into some tough spots, but we're brothers by the end. 3 weeks later, we arrived in Ho Chi Minh, sold our motorcycles to other foreigners making the opposite journey, and said goodbye. I went to Vietnam for solitude and adventure, but along the way, I found family. Edit. I've included a longer version of my story as a response to this post below. Give it a read if you're interested. Also, I'll answer any questions you guys might have. Hope you enjoy. I used to gamble every day. One of my first times at a casino, while playing blackjack, I got dealt king, queen of spades. I made a bet with my friend who busted that I would hit and get the ace of spades the dealer, and the whole table begged me not to do it. I hit Ace of Spades. Felt like God for a moment before losing everything I had on me that night. When I was in 10th grade, 3 friends, and I left in the middle of school to go get McDonald's. On the way back, one of my friends flicked a penny out of the window, and it hit a nice-looking red Dodge. The guy in the Dodge turned around real quick and chased us all the way back to school and cornered us. He held us at gunpoint until the police came, and the police called everyone's parents except mine for some reason. After that, we went back to class, and later that night, all 4 of us played in a baseball tournament at a nice-ass triple-A baseball stadium. Also, I got thrown out at second base that night, causing us to lose because the hitter bunted a pop-up while the coach told me to steal. Back in high school, I volunteered at food bank for community service hours and whatnot. On occasion, we would prepare and cook lunch for the homeless. Now, this was at an old church, so not everything was up to date, such as the stovetop. One day, we were making burgers on said stovetop, but we didn't have the appropriate pans, so we used this metal bin to cook the burgers over the stovetop. Unfortunately, it leaked, and the stovetop lit the fuck up. I grabbed the extinguisher and sprayed the hell out of it. Now, since I had never actually used a fire extinguisher before I had made a mess, but it didn't matter. They called me a hero and everything. Praised me for my quick thinking, but man, shit just felt natural. You see a fire, then put that shit out. When I was 16, I had a girlfriend, also 16, whose parents owned a resort in Belize. They said I could stay there. All I had to do was buy a ticket out there. I saved up my money all summer, got a passport. But 2 weeks before it was time to go, instead of buying the ticket, I bought computer parts. TLDR. I gave up a week of underage sex in a tropical resort for computer parts. In my first ever concert, I got pulled up on the stage by Maxim from The Prodigy. I remember he dyed my hair red and was wearing a skin-tight black top, wearing these UV contact lenses. I'm a guy BTW. I didn't dance. I just walked around the stage taking it all in. Walked around the back to look at Liam Howlett on the keys. Finally realized I should be something when I saw all the other people going apeshit and joined in. Jumped back into the crowd, and at every other concert for a long time after, I just expected to be pulled up and would hang around the front waiting for it to happen. I have a bunch, but I went to the movies in Alaska with Ashton Kutcher in summer 2013. I live here and was working for a limo company at the time. We were hired to drive him, his friend, and their dads to the airport and escort them to their gate. I was 18 years old, and I'm a girl, so I begged my boss to let me tag along with the driver. He agreed, so we picked them up and got them to the airport. But their flight was delayed, so my boss got the dads on an earlier flight, but Ashton and his friend were stuck for a little bit, so they took us to the movies. I remember it vividly. It was World War Z, and he paid. It was so delightful. I had a lucky Colorado Rockies hat when I was a kid that I wore every day for years. One day, I realized it was missing and I had a serious little kid meltdown. My mom tried to get me a new hat, but it wasn't the same. Flash forward a few months, Mom and I were at Walmart when I see a bin full of MLB hats and start looking through them. I see a Rockies hat like the one I had and notice it is much dirtier and worn than the others. My mom notices too and tries to get me to accept a replacement. I reluctantly agree and Mom buys it. On the way out, I'm checking it out more closely and notice my initials on the tag of the hat in Mom/Santa's handwriting. After a few moments of staring in utter confusion, I showed it to my distracted mother, who slowly realizes that it was my hat. My lucky hat came back to me. I'll never forget the look on her face as she processed the situation and kind of couldn't believe what was going on. We hesitantly went back in and they gave her a refund. I still can't tell this story to friends without having to call Mom to confirm. Plausible theory. Some greasy kid stole your hat, but it was too dirty to sell to anyone. You went to Walmart wearing it, then pulled the old switcheroo to walk out the door with a brand new one. You finding it later was just dumb luck. I once had to do a software installation on an icebreaker. I flew out to the coast, caught a twin otter at an Air Force base, and flew 1,000 kilometers north. And then I got picked up by a helicopter and flown out to sea for an at-sea landing on the icebreaker. Then I discovered I had left one of the installation discs behind at the office. I was raised in a big city in Pennsylvania. It wasn't the best neighborhood, but I occupied my time mostly with sports. My dad wasn't around, so I had some issues, and anyway, I ended up getting into a scuffle at school. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Ended up having to move in with relatives in a nicer area. It was definitely a good thing, though. It's how I became the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I was super into the Metal Gear Solid a few years back. I was driving my friend past the Big Lots parking lot where I saw one of the employees walking by. In case you have never seen a Big Lots logo, it's a big fucking exclamation point that is shown on the back of their shirts. I had my window down and I yelled, "Who's that?" My friend told me, "That's my ex-girlfriend Monica." Oops. Got locked out of my apartment, taking the trash out on a very cold night in November, wearing nothing but a bathrobe. Downtown Boston. Not a soul home in the building that night, but me. Had to call over a very tall drag queen working the corner and asked to borrow a quarter to use a payphone down the street. It was 1975. I needed to call a friend with an extra app key to let me in. The drag queen was worried for my safety and proceeded to hold my arm. She's about 6 feet 5 inches to my 5 feet 8 inches. Walks me to the payphone. Mind you, I'm barefoot and completely naked under my robe. Stands there while I call my friend. Walks me back to my building and sits there with me till my friend showed up. So cold I thought my nuts would fall off, but she made sure I was safe. Never forgot that night or her kindness. I used to have an extreme irrational fear of Wayne Knight, aka Newman, growing up. My parents always had Seinfeld on, and anytime Newman would come on, I would cry and run. Well, one night we went to a fancy restaurant in downtown Indy, and who else is there but fucking Wayne Knight? Why the fuck was he in Indy? I'm 21 years old now, and whenever I watch Seinfeld, I still feel a little odd. When I was around 2 or 3, I escaped from home on my small trike. Made it all the way to the cemetery. Meanwhile, my dog was going nuts because I wasn't there. Mom called police and reported a missing child. I rode back on my trike with some recently snagged flowers for Mom and simply said, "Liam lost." Damn, all these incredible stories in here, and this is mine. My friend and I were eating at McDonald's. He filled up his large drink, put a lid on it, and put it on his tray. It started to tip off and fall to the floor. I somehow caught it while it was upside down from underneath. No speed. No miss. I need to get out more. I was diagnosed with cancer for the first time in 2003 and a second time in 2009. In between, I had a triple bypass. There were multiple surgeries, some radiation, lots of chemo, and plenty of other procedures that stripped all manner of dignities for the purpose of healing. The good news is I'm recently cancer-free for more than 5 years now, and fit enough that my wife and I have biked almost 3,000 miles or more every year since my last recovery. When I was in grade 6, I went to my uncle's wedding out on a ranch in Alberta. They had a bunch of horses around and would let us pet and ride them. Anyway, one day I was out in one of the stables sitting on some hay, and this spotted Appalachian pony came walking over, and I started petting him. After about 30 seconds, he suddenly flicked his head up, bit me on the face really hard, and yanked me off the hay down to ground. I started crying/screaming and ran out of the stables as this bastard chased me. I was getting all sorts of ice cream and pop for the rest of the time my family was there. I was going to school, and at the time I was riding the bus, or the mass transit system as I like to call it. While waiting for the bus one day inside the bus shelter, I noticed a large thermos. I pick it up and look at it. Written with black Sharpie on it was, "This is a bomb." At this moment, the bus rolls up, and I put it down and hop on the bus. The next day I show up, the bus shelter has glass everywhere. The wooden bench I was sitting on is chunks of wood scattered all over the ground with yellow police tape surrounding the whole thing. My classmates told me that the police cleared them all out of the building while they were studying late that night to sweep the building for explosives. I couldn't believe how lucky I was that day. I later found out that the bomb squad blew up the thermos, and that was what all the damage was about. That mount was my final breaking point for WoW. I had collected just about every mount that was available from when I started around the latter half of Burning Crusade, but that damn Proto-Drake eluded me. After countless hours of searching and waiting, I finally nabbed that fucker on the way to Ulduar with my 10-man group. Turns out several of my guild mates were trying to tag it as well. They were not as happy as I was. But that's when it hit me. After about 10 seconds of excitement, I thought, okay, what's next? Countless days of farming and waiting and boredom, just to brush it off and continue on my quest for what? My quest to kill time. I quit WoW for good the very next day. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.